Imagine getting a phone call from your wife or your boss telling you to do something and it sounds exactly like them. AI is able to do that.
That's Ryan Burke. He's the VP of Worldwide Sales at Crogl, a leading AI cybersecurity firm. Today, he joins us for a conversation about the emerging AI threats facing every tech company.
Mythos has lowered the cost to like the dollar menu equivalent of running an attack so more people can do it. And enterprises are going to be very busy patching things, probably from now until the end of time.
Plus, we get into a massive untracked vulnerability that's spreading inside most organizations.
The researchers showed that Bide-coded software is times as likely to have security issues.
Join us as we discuss the market fallout of the Elon Musk versus OpenAI lawsuit, whether plummeting legacy SaaS valuations are justified, and how executives must navigate this new era of risk. Welcome to Top Line.
Hello, everybody. It's Sam Jacobs. I'm the CEO of Pavilion. You're listening to Top Line. It's a great podcast, and I'm joined by my co-host, AJ Bruno, the CEO of Quotapath, Asad Zaman, the CEO of Sales Talent Agency. Today, we've got a very special guest on the show, longtime listener, first-time caller, and the CRO to the stars in the world of cybersecurity. His name is Ryan Burke. He recently was the subject of sort of a leapfrog series of acquisitions where he joined, was it called Zillow Security, Ryan?
Zillow Security, yep.
That was acquired by CyberArk, which was then immediately acquired by Palo Alto Networks for many billions of dollars or some hundreds of millions. It doesn't really matter. It's 2 exits in a row. And now you're are you a VP of sales or CRO for a company?
VP of Worldwide Sales.
VP of Worldwide.
Worldwide, Sam.
That was a
negotiation.
We're doing it worldwide, Ryan. And it's called Crogl. Crogl. It's AI for the enterprise SOC. And we're excited to have you on the show, Ryan. Welcome to Top Line.
Happy to be back. Yes, Sam, you didn't know this.
You were out, that's
Ryan was there once when you were not here. So not a first time caller, second time caller.
Time where Sam every other one, Sam was like, I just can't make it, guys. See you later.
Yeah, it's just too much. It's too much. Specifically. All right. Well, welcome back. Welcome back, Ryan. And shame on me. We might lose a few YouTube streamers for that kerfuffle.
But let's very special though. Ryan, every time he has a guest, we usually just say he just says special guest. You got you got a great adjective there.
I think I like Ryan, and he's a friend, and he's also very smart, and he's also the father to a newborn daughter, right?
2 boys, almost 3 and 6 months.
Fair enough. What else can I get wrong? You sure you didn't have a daughter? I feel like you had a daughter.
Nothing's being admitted here.
Calling to us direct from Indonesia, right? That's where you live?
Same name.
Malaysia.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Malaysia. Anyway, let's get into the show. We're going to be talking cybersecurity, folks. And Asad Zaman is going to tell us what we're going to be talking about.
The first topic is who's going to win because of this increased cyber risk? And anyone that's following tech has heard about Anthropic's Mythos model that has scared everyone when it comes to cyber risk. And since then, OpenAI has released GPT 5.6 and a cyber version of that as well. Both of those models people are speaking very highly about. And there's a lot of anxiety in the market when it comes to what this means for cyber risk. It showed up in stocks of other cybersecurity companies getting hit hard. It seems to happen every time these companies release something. The associated stocks get hit. It'll be interesting to figure out if that's reasonable or rational. But maybe, Ryan, the place to start is, can you give us the 10,000-foot view of what's happening with these models? Like, why do they increase cyber risk?
So AI in general, and then I'll speak to the model specifically with what I know or what I can share, is increasing risk in a couple of ways. The first you might see more often in the news, and that is that threat actors themselves are using AI to identify vulnerabilities, to generate and chain multi-stage attacks, and to automate these at scale. And they're also using AI to become more effective at creating realistic phishing. You know, these are the emails you get saying to log into your bank account, and it's not your bank account. So think about the same tools that many of the listeners are using to personalize at scale, except now that AI is being used to convince you to click on a link that takes you to a nefarious site. We're even seeing now these deep fakes. Imagine getting a phone call from your wife or a husband or sibling or your boss telling you to do something, and it sounds exactly like them. AI is able to do that. So there's new types of attacks. Or you're interviewing a candidate for a remote position that you think is based in Texas, but is really sitting in North Korea. The second way AI is increasing risk is that we're deploying AI. Right? It's a new technology. We're using AI to generate code. A lot of data breaches come from misconfigurations. And when you have a new technology that isn't mature, people screw it up. They misconfigure it, give too many permissions to an agent, right? So you see some comical examples like when Taco Bell rolls out AI in the drive-thru and someone says, well, I'd like to order 18,000 cups of water, and it, takes the whole system down.
I was at a Wawa, as one might be in Philadelphia. Everyone on this call knows what a Wawa is, of course.
No idea, dude.
Oh, get out of here, Asad. I
I
don't
don't know
even
what a
know.
Wawa is.
Is Timmy Hortons, is that still good or that's terrible right now? Like Tim Hortons is awful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty
so it's way
bad.
better than Tim Hortons, but it's the same thing, same concept, except it's a gas station. Anyway, we
Yeah, it's not
ordered.
the same concept at all, just to be clear.
So
No.
we here 2 nights ago, and we're going to order food, and half the things are out. And they're like, "Oh, we don't have shredded lettuce, but we have romaine lettuce." I'm like, "Well, can't you just substitute?" And they're like, "Yeah." They switched all of Wawa's ordering to AI, and there's some kinks still so they've run out of all of the food items at Wawa's. I looked this up actually, because of AI ordering. So,
He
yeah.
was so upset. He went deep
The
onto
Taco Bell
Reddit.
story.
You're like,
I was
what's
super
happening with
upset.
the lettuce?
Yeah, I'm telling all of our thousands of listeners, don't go to Wawa because of it. Okay, continue, Ryan.
That's
Why?
what's happening generally. That's just happening all over the place. And then the mythos, I'll just caveat this by saying I don't have access to the model. I don't think I would know what to do with it if I did. Our company, Crogl, met with the Mythos team very recently, and we have a few large customers that are part of the Glasswing project. Think systemically important financial institutions that are getting like briefed by the Secretary of the Treasury. So we've got some access, and then there's what you've read. And so that said, what Mythos has done is it's identified new 0-day events. And for those that don't know, a 0-day event, think of it that the attackers have access to a vulnerability before the defenders know what to do with it, right? So there's 0 days to patch. And Mythos did discover a few new ones.
What's an example of that?
In the world,
Log4j would be an example, right? There was this huge effort where I think it was during the pandemic, everyone was running around talking about Log4j, which had a vulnerability that was widely deployed. It was in Java all over the place. It's open source. People use it. And if people didn't update it to a new version, hackers would be able to come in and take control of machines. And so this happens all the time. What Mythos has done is take these known vulnerabilities and create novel ways to use them. That an experienced cybersecurity researcher could figure this out in like an afternoon, but there aren't that many of them, right? And so now Mythos has lowered the cost to like the dollar menu equivalent of running an attack, and it's put sophisticated knowledge of cybersecurity in the hands of people that are much less sophisticated, so more people can do it. And that's the concern. People haven't gotten around to patching all this stuff, and enterprises are going to be they're very busy patching things.
aren't they pretty busy doing that already?
Yeah, I mean, to get in the weeds, like patching something is like it introduced its own risk. So cybersecurity is all about managing risk. Think if you're an app owner at a company and the security team comes and says, hey, we have to patch this. Well, if that app is a banking portal login, if that app is doing trade settlements at the end of the day, and patching it causes it to break, then that's going to cost you a lot as well. And so these things kind of get delayed over time based on the level of risk. Well, now that there's a lot more people that can go out and use AI to go pop these vulnerabilities, the likelihood of being attacked is a lot higher.
Could this lead to, I wouldn't say less innovation, but like less updating? And so they want to create stability across a lot of these banking frameworks?
That's right. And it's not just banking, right? If you're a SaaS application and you have to take that application down or inadvertently take it down because you patch something, then the business is going to be screaming because customers can't use the app.
So you've got the model that can identify the vulnerability. So if I'm a nefarious person and I want to attack AJ's commission planning
The way you
software,
say nefarious makes you a nefarious person, by
Yeah.
the way, Asad.
I think we
Right.
already know that Asad is a nefarious person. We don't have to oscillate.
so I can use GPT 5.6 Cyber and I can just point it at AJ and I can attack AJ. But on the other side, are these models also going to be used to then accelerate the pace at which we can protect our organizations? Like, is there a counterbalance here? Or it's like, it's only getting bad and there's nothing there to fight it other than like manually trying to fix things, which seems like a losing battle. You've got AI on one side and humans trying to do things on the other side.
It is on both sides, and Crogl, not to give a plug, is an example of just that. What's happened over the last decade or so is enterprises have gone and deployed a ton of tools. They have tools that look at things like laptops and endpoints. They have tools that look at identity. They have tools that look at cloud security, like Wiz. And what do? They send a bunch of alerts. Well, those alerts typically go to a security operations center. So think dimly lit room, lots of screens, like all you see in the movies. And there are humans there looking at all these alerts, most of which are fairly benign. I have a Nest doorbell on a busy street, and I get alerts all the time from this thing. And it's just a guy walking a dog, right? It's like nothing important. But there is some useful stuff that comes in, like you just had a package delivered. You should go pick it up before your famous bank robber neighborhood figures it out before you do, right? In Charlestown, Boston, Massachusetts. And firms are getting tens of thousands of these alerts a day. And so there's just not enough people you could scale to go look at all of that. And so Crogl and others are using AI. It's a perfect problem for AI to solve, to help triage that and get to that, get the signal to the people that need to do their own reasoning on it and move out all the noise.
AJ, you are a founder of an 8-figure technology business. How much of your time do you spend or have spent historically thinking about cyber, thinking about security vulnerabilities, thinking about these sort of things? Because you are in a pretty sensitive space, right? Like you handle payroll and compensation data and sensitive employee information. Like how much mind share does this take of yours? And are you more concerned now than you've traditionally been?
As an 8-figure company, and after I pay my 8-figure intercom bill,
9-figure income bill.
we think about this all the time, mainly because that is one of the barriers or like the differentiators, let's say differentiator that software has right now is that our team is constantly thinking about this. It's not just the SOC 2 type 2. It's really saying like, look, if you're going to build or Claude code a tool and you're integrating into, you're using MCPs because everyone wants to use the term MCP for everything. And you're just using an MCP for taking all of your Salesforce data and throwing it into Claude. Think about the privacy security. People don't think about that. I mean, we do this for ourselves, right? We have Claude Code or Claude look at our data and our own internal data. But at the same time, if you're using it for a workflow with sensitive systems like payroll, that is something that I think is just needs to be front and center for our organizations. There's a lot that the general public doesn't know happens underneath the surface, and we're just all okay with it. We generally just go about our day to day until we have these 0-day events. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if CrowdStrike was a 0-day event, but I was sitting on the tarmac about to take off, and the pilot came on and said, Microsoft Office and email just went down, so we can't take off. And we're like, what? And then you hear about it that way. Well, it created a vulnerability that like took everything down. And so these events happen, and we've always been able to recover until we aren't able to recover.
Do you have a security team? Is this something every engineer is handling on their own? Like,
Yeah, we have an architecture team and our CTO. They're responsible for this. We actually took one of our top engineers and made him QA and security in terms of just so quality assurance is fine by itself, but then making sure that as you're pushing things that other stuff doesn't break, given that we touch so many different sensitive systems like CRM and like payroll and like ERP, we have to make sure that we're handling that data with care because data trust is so important from day one. And And that's something that we think about all the time. Yeah.
Sam, just taking a step to the side here, a little sidestep between you and I. Why not?
Are
Um,
you are you kicking us out of the podcast right
No,
now?
I feel like a sidestep's going to be more interesting for me. I don't really have a lot to say about security. So where are we going on this trip,
we're
Austin?
going on a nice side trip. This is
Oh,
going to be fun.
beautiful.
So, a few weeks ago, Claude released Claude Design, and you saw Figma and Adobe get hit hard in the market. And then the same thing happened with some finance skills that they released, and the finance tech companies got hit in the public markets. And then this with cyber, they announced we have this cool cyber model, and then all these cybersecurity stocks get hit. I played with Claude Design. It's pretty cool. It's really good for me. But it's definitely not replacing Adobe for a professional Adobe user or Figma for a professional Figma user. So there seems to be this disconnect between they release something that is fairly contained in terms of what it can do and the value it can provide. And then the market has this really intense reaction to it, almost like a doomsday reaction. How do you psychoanalyze this? Like, why does a small update that shows like maybe one day we'll play in that space take billions of dollars of market cap off of companies that are established, deeply integrated, functional players in that space?
It's a great question. Fundamentally, I think when we see market moves like that, it represents what we all feel every day, which is that we don't know what's going to happen. And I think the market doesn't know what's going to happen either. Thing number one. Thing number two is, as many people not smarter than me have said, it's less about whether Claude Design replaces Figma today, but it is about what is the terminal value? What are the out years of cash flows modeled for Figma now that we know that it's relatively easy? Because I think Dario said that nobody in Anthropic actually writes code anymore. They just orchestrate the creation of code. So if it's that simple to build something that's close enough, what does that mean for Figma's long-term viability? Now, the answer to that question is unknown, or it's not expressed in the market. Nobody knows, but the doubt is reflected in the declining market cap, because what it represents is a compression of perspectives, or at least increased risk on the outflow, the out year cash flows that were stronger and more buttressed and supported in the pre-Anthropic valuation of Figma. The final thing I would say, I mean, I'm of two minds about it. I'm closer to the mind of companies need to focus, and a bunch of, and Anthropic and OpenAI farting 15 different things into the market doesn't represent any coherent strategy. That's where I'm closer to. But also, you know, Clay Christensen teaches us about the innovator's dilemma, and that these cheap throwaway tools might not be fit for purpose today, but they open up a part of the market that maybe was not open before. And over time, they can grow up easier than Figma can grow down.
They give us an idea of what the future could look like.
Exactly.
I think to that point,
You get a
Sam.
lot of calls, Sam, from you're kind of like the therapist to the CROs of the world.
Indeed.
Especially
He's our
those,
therapist on the show. He's the calming
especially
voice.
those at companies with more than 100 million with Pavilion Gold. So,
Asad.
so you get a call from someone, let's say from someone at Figma or Adobe, who has a release of this sort, hammer their stock. They see their own stock options go down in value and they're feeling anxious. What's the advice? Is it, don't worry, keep going? Or is it, start looking? Like, where do you fall when a person who's in one of these companies calls you feeling anxious about all of this?
Listen, my deep, it's closer to don't worry, and that might
Mm.
make me wrong. So let's admit that I don't know, but I'm of the camp of control what you can control. Your job is to drive revenue growth and operate a good business. You don't really have a lot of control over terminal value, and you know that's where I end up. That's where I end up. I was on the phone just now with the president of no, it's a different business. It's a data business,
That business was 220 million in ARR, now accelerating growth, now growing faster than it grew last year, now on track to get to 300 million because AI has given them the ability to analyze data sets that they previously had access to but had no ability to effectively analyze. And this business, by the way, is 15 years old. It's not some newbie. And my point is, I think there's opportunity. I think, listen, if you believe in what you're doing and you believe that the fundamentals of Figma are good, what should you do when the stock price drops? You should buy more.
I bought a bunch of cybersecurity stocks, so we'll see how this plays out. I bought a bunch.
Generally speaking, Asad, my advice is do what, control what you can control and try to execute. Now maybe not, that's not great advice. I mean, it's probably not great advice for the team that just got let go from HubSpot. I can tell you that. But I don't have better advice. I don't think it's jump ship. You're CRO of a multi-billion-dollar organization. You have some plays you can make. You're not completely stuck.
AJ, Lemkin had, in a way, written off a lot of the SaaS era companies that by, let's say, the mid to late part of last year had not had any sort of reacceleration. And then now, in the last couple of days, you've seen Atlassian has reaccelerated. There's this example that Sam just shared, and there are many of these examples in private markets. Do you think that some people were just too fast to write off SaaS era companies as irrelevant because they hadn't quickly shown reacceleration by integrating AI into their businesses? And actually, you still have a fight to fight, as long as you're in the field. Does the market really care if your reacceleration shows up in 2026 or even 2027? Doesn't really matter, does it?
Need those headlines, need those clicks. There was a lot of clickbaiting, and I think to the point that Sam made earlier is we truly didn't know from a future standpoint. So you saw on the spectrum very like binary 1 or 0 and doom and gloom in what we were seeing in the market. And not, I think it's so interesting that we are underestimating and undervaluing innovation in software companies. Why are we doing that? Like techno yes, they're large companies and Atlassian is a huge company, but they've only been around in what, 20 years? And 20 years isn't a long time in company terms. And they've been able to create innovation and they've grown horizontally and they've acquired a lot of companies to do so. Like, so why are we betting as people? Why are we betting against that? Why
Well,
would
I think
Jason
the counter
Lemkin bet?
perspective to that is if you look at the releases that Figma had, they were highly uninspiring. And so if you looked at
Well,
the releases
that's a
Figma
company to
had,
company situation, and there will always be that. That was true pre-AI. That was
yeah, but
always
I
the
think
case.
the broadly the releases were very uninspiring out of SaaS companies and very inspiring out of AI companies. And what's happening now is that you're noticing,
But were they
well, leave
inspiring?
them at it for a while and they start getting impressive.
Sam just said they're throwing 15 farts to the wind. I don't know. That's something like that. That doesn't sound inspiring to me. Claude Code is writing all of their new features. That doesn't sound inspiring to me. Like,
No, that's
I
not
don't,
true. Who cares who writes it as long as it works beautifully, right? Like,
but
who
the
cares who
LLMs are very much consensus building in terms of what they're doing. I still have the strong point of view that
No, but
uh,
you're saying that the LLM is deciding what to build. The LLM's building the thing. It's the human that's like,
sure,
go build
I
this thing.
understand that. Okay,
Yeah, but the
fair
way that
enough.
it does it, AJ's right. It is fascinating, right? Everybody's using Claude. All of a sudden, every presentation looks exactly the same. And I bet, and I'm curious, Ryan, what you think, but I bet there are a lot more security if the average state of certain pieces of code has some zero-day failure, then that's being propagated across the entire technology ecosystem right now because the LLMs are just going to drop it in every time they see that.
The researchers showed that sort of vibe coded software is almost 3 times as likely to have security issues. So that's
Ooh.
definitely happening. It starts out with somebody maybe building their own agent or their own tool. Let's say it's a finance person and they build some automation. They vibe code something that'll help them with month end close by pulling a lot of data in from different places. And then over time, that becomes a necessary part of the month end close process. Maybe other people are using it, whatever. And then that guy quits and goes somewhere else, and there's no one maintaining it. And one day they make some change to an API somewhere, their whole month-end close process breaks because it's the agent doesn't leave with the employee. It just stays behind and no one's owning it.
This is a really interesting thread. We will come back to this in topic number 2. We need to go to our favorite segment. It is time. This wasn't happening last time when you were here, Ryan, but it's happening now. It is Quiz Pro.
Whoa.
3 questions, multiple choices, me versus the 3 of you. Things you guys should know. I think you have a security expert, so these are security questions today. You guys can collude. I'll give you guys 30 to 45 seconds, and then you have to lock in an answer. Question number 1.
We went 3 for 3 last week. We're going to crush it. We got this.
Question number 1. Let's see. What is the total market cap of all the public cybersecurity tech companies in the US today? Option number 1, $500 billion. Option number 2, $750 billion. Option number 3, $1 trillion. Option number 4, $3.5 trillion. Cybersecurity.
This is a tough question because it depends on what you count as a cybersecurity company. Because
only the pure play cybersecurity companies. We don't count.
SpaceX doesn't count as a cybersecurity company.
No, he doesn't know.
Well, Palo and CrowdStrike combined are probably in the high 200 billions, right? And those are the 2 largest.
It's really up to Ryan.
It's got to be above a trillion or above. It's got to be the
I
one
think
of the
it's
latter
between
2.
$1 trillion and 7. Did you say 700 or 750?
750.
Come on, Ryan.
I think there might be things in there that are not pure play cybersecurity, like a Cisco or others. Like if you consider Microsoft a cybersecurity
No,
company.
I don't.
You don't. Okay, so I'll go with $1 trillion.
It is wrong. If you just look at pure play cybersecurity, 500 billion.
This is a
It's
flawed
actually not a very large.
question.
It's not that big a category. I thought it was much larger than that. I was surprised. I was surprised.
The more interesting question, which I hope you ask next, what was it 10 years ago? I'm curious.
You should know. And then you have to say after that, you should know. You should know.
Okay, how many data breaches have happened in the US in 2025? The thing that some of these companies are protecting against, the thing that AJ stays up at night thinking about, data breaches. How many data breaches happened last year? Option number 1, 1,500. Option number 2, 3,100. Option number 3, 7,500. Option number 4, 14,000 data breaches.
I'll go with number 2. I think it's somewhere around between 3,000 and 4,000.
Well,
Ooh,
what do you think,
very
Sam?
sharp.
Wait. Don't. We got to collude
I'm
on
going to
this.
go with 7,500. I think that's a lot, but I mean, Ryan is this. I don't know, and this I do. And just to throw the red flag, I shouldn't know this. This is not a critical piece of information to my.
You really took
functioning
offense to
business.
us, and you should know this.
At least you're learning as we're going. Now you will know this.
Yeah, now I will. That's true.
Yeah, I got to go with Ryan, I guess, on it. Ryan, what'd you say?
I think it was around
3,500?
3,500. So I think the answer was 3,100, but
3,100.
I think it's between 3,000 and 4,000.
You are right. It is 3,100 data breaches. Now, just because it's 3,100 seems like a small number. I was looking at the SolarWinds breach that had happened, and they estimate that the cost of that one breach was $100 billion.
Oh my god!
How wild is that? One
That's
breach,
crazy.
and
Yeah,
we
they
had
really screwed up.
3,100 breaches. Last question. You shouldn't know this, but at the end of this, you will know this, and then you can talk about it at a dinner and tell your friends. Now you know something.
Get kicked out. Yeah.
How many people work at publicly traded cybersecurity companies in the US? It is a $500 billion category. Is it 120,000 people? Is it 220,000 people? Is it 550,000 people? Only 3 options. Only 3 options.
I'm gonna go with 220,000.
Should we do what we did, which is like the ARR per FTE, which we did last time, and that was successful?
500, but it's the market cap. We don't have their revenue.
That's true. That's a good point.
Smart man. You figured it out.
So Palo's approaching 10 billion and they're the largest. CrowdStrike's probably 60-70% of that. It's probably in the 50 billion range.
Well,
So
that's
what
a
would you
10x
have?
market cap. You think they're getting 10x multiple on their revenue?
They are. Yeah.
They're very high multiples of cybersecurity companies. Having bought a bunch, I can tell you. not as discounted as you would think.
What were our options again?
120,000, 220,000, or 550,000. 500,000 people.
I would go with 120.
Ooh. AJ, are you going to lock
That would
in
be
on that
about-
Hold
120?
on, I don't want to lock in yet.
It's
on
like
this.
$500,000
So-
per.
Yeah, that sounds too high. I'm gonna go I would think 220.
Well, we have to. I'm gonna go, but then
Bruno,
so
give
that
me some
number.
cybersecurity expert on file.
Yeah. Let's go with Ryan's. I
Yeah,
vote
okay.
Ryan.
Let's go with Ryan.
Ryan is right. Ryan is from, this is why Ryan's here, guys. Cyber is top of mind. Ryan knows his shit. And so it's 120,000 people work at cybersecurity companies
job,
that are
Ryan.
publicly traded in the US. You guys got 2 out of 3 right. And I did not expect that today. I did not expect that. I thought this was mine. Ryan,
Cyber
well
tends
done.
to have a high revenue per employee generally. So
Yeah, we should have started
Cyber is-
cybersecurity companies. That's what you're telling us right
Very
now.
interesting space, man. Like if you look at CrowdStrike's multiple, it's trading as if like those peak SaaS era multiples. Let's go back to our discussion, guys. Ryan, before the break or before our segment, you were talking about vibe coding. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot as the cyber risk has increased, which is that you see there's this conversation happening about the future of SaaS. Are we going to one-shot Slack and implement it in our organizations? Let's put that to the side for now. There are a lot of departments in businesses that are non-technical departments that are creating applications. My favorite example is you've got a finance team that has this spreadsheet that they manage the business off of that spreadsheet. They create a web application now. And they use Replit, they create the web application. Looks really sweet, looks nice, it's fancy. You send it around, everybody's happy. We are AI native, AI forward. But what type of risk is this creating for an organization when you have all these non-technical teams that are creating these applications that are fun to use and cool to see, but these are not technical people? They have no shot at, like, it seems, figuring out the security side of this. Are we just increasing the amount of vulnerabilities in all our organizations by a huge magnitude?
right now, yes, but that could be different in 3 months because we're on this like exponential slope of these models improving, right? So that quote could go out of date very quickly. But what I would compare it to is I have an old house in an old neighborhood in Boston, and it's been renovated many times, including expensively by me. There was all kinds of decisions made individually, small things that added up to some structural challenges that we had, right? So that could be the scenario we find ourselves in with everyone vibe coding their own stuff and having no coordination around that. There are real security risks too. You code an agent to go do something for you, and it's operating on your behalf. It's using your permissions. It's accessing things that you're allowed to access, and then it's hitting APIs, and those APIs have certain permissions associated to them. This starts to happen at scale. Think of it like your badge to get in the building, and then you give it to a colleague who forgot theirs, and now they're using your badge to get into the building, and then they give that badge to a subcontractor. They clone it so the subcontractor can work faster. Then the subcontractor props open the door to the building for the delivery guy. And then all of a sudden that one badge has created this massive...
This is like the time last week when I texted Asad my credit card number, and the charges haven't shown up yet, but I can't wait till they drop.
I shared it on Discord.
Again, cybersecurity is all about managing risk. The safest way to store data would be to write it down in a notebook and put it in a safe. And that's just not how businesses can run. And so the role of the CISO ultimately is to help put a price to that risk so that the business can determine whether it's a risk worth taking. And then there are insurance companies that will underwrite that. And they'll look at how you operate your business and say, this is what your insurance premium is going to be because you guys are a bunch of cowboys, right? Or we're not going to underwrite that business.
Sam, you and Abraham were running. Abraham was your AI.
He's briefly my social media manager, Abraham Opencroft, and he's also the name of my dog.
We much prefer the dog version of this.
Very much.
The
very
dog
much.
Abraham is a legend.
He's a very good boy.
When you were working with Abraham the bot, how much was like security and vulnerability? Like, did it come to mind? Because I haven't thought about this at all while I'm vibe coding and doing my thing till somewhat recently, and it just has started hitting me. Was it like, you were giving it a lot of access and permissions. Was it coming to like, I wonder what happens if this goes bad?
What I realized I just didn't know what I was doing. And I realized that I was my own private CISO. Because once you start like going into this world, if you don't have a separate Mac Mini or you're doing it like I do, because normally I don't really care about security, to be honest. So I'm giving it API keys. If you're tinkering with OpenClaw, you are spinning up new services that you don't really have a lot of experience with. Alestio for DevOps to host the OpenClaw, and then you need your credit card on file for Anthropic because it's using compute, or you need some OpenAI API key, and then you need another API key for the late, which is the social media thing that connects to the LinkedIn API and the Twitter or X API. Pretty soon you got like all these weird APIs. This thing that you don't really understand is sort of out there doing stuff, and it's using, again, I could have optimized it. If it was really important to me, I could have optimized it, but I realized the main thing it was doing was auto responding to every comment, and I realized that sucks. I was contributing to slop. It wasn't me. It was acting on my behalf, saying stuff that sounded good until you realize that the structure and rhythm is artificial. And so I turned it off. And Neil said it's probably better. One true, authentic Sam response is better than 100 fake ones. And I came to that conclusion myself. And then, as we discussed, it started. It doesn't listen. These markdown files are not hard and fast rules. They're not deterministic. They're probabilistic. Sometimes it doesn't remember, and figuring out how to structure it so that it's and I again, I'm sure Gary Tan and all these people are way smarter than me. So maybe there are ways. I have a QA agent and a QA agent, and
You
I have
have
an agent that checks
37
the QA
agents
agent.
that check the
Like
work.
triple levels of redundancy. I still don't think that actually solves the fundamental problem. And so, it was drafting, posts. But again, I couldn't put it anywhere because people would start talking to it, and then it would draw down my bill. So at some point, it ran out of credits with Anthropic, and I haven't refilled it. And so it's like slacking me every day that there are 6 failed cron
Please,
jobs.
please feed me.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you're dead. Like,
Good. So here's where I think the average person should care about security. I mean, if you're at a startup, lack of security can kill an acquisition. It used to be the three pillars where you owned your code and your product, your IP. You hit your numbers while you were under the microscope, and there was a third pillar. But a fourth pillar now is you're secure. If JP Morgan Chase is going to acquire you, they don't want to have this fintech startup be a vector for folks to come in and hack them. And then as a consumer, I mean, I worry, I don't actively worry about it, but I would worry if Google were hacked and my search history where, you see these court cases and the guy's like how to dispose of a body and you're like, what an idiot. And then it's like, oh, I put a lot of dumb stuff, not murder, or if,
thanks for clarifying that.
if OpenAI were,
You
were hacked.
just not murder. Murder is the only not dumb thing you've done.
I mean, some crimes, sure, but nothing violent. But OpenAI were hacked, or if my bank account were made public, I mean, this would cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. So it's important that these large enterprises, the vendors that we use every day, that they take it seriously, because that's my information. My kids go to a daycare. I'd rather they don't get hacked. They're using all kinds of stuff now with like pictures and video. I don't want that stuff out there.
AJ, like, how do you think about this? So you've got an organization, you sit on top of a lot of sensitive data. At the same time, you want to be AI forward. So you're telling people to have Replit and vibe code and do all these fancy things. How does one find the balance? Like, if finance is vibe coding a new application before that application is actually used in a way where we're giving it real data, we have to run it by our engineering team. And so now does our engineering team have to spend like 20% of their time like checking our vibe coded apps so that we're AI native? Like, how does
Well,
one do this?
we're still at the point, at least for QuotaPath, where we're still at like personalized apps. So people creating apps to call their calendar and make their some of their events private versus not. So it's like the automation bucket of things.
By the
With
way,
sen-
all the like useless vibe coded stuff is the one where someone says, I vibe coded something and it tells me what meetings I have on my calendar.
and
Like,
they just hack it and they get all of my contacts, and now someone has all of my contacts. I mean, the answer is I don't think about it to the level that we're talking about. I think it's similar to what Ryan said. It's just like I'm going about my day like the risk reward balance is that the value I'm getting out, the output out of the LLM is much greater than the risk I'm putting in, because the risk short term is none. It's zero. I'm not having that risk. Like, that's a future AJ problem that I'll have to deal with my social security. Like, if Austin gets my social security number, I'm screwed. I don't know what I'm going to
already
do,
have
but
his credit card.
you have my credit card. You're just going to impersonate me. You're going to walk into a Wawa and be like, where's my shredded lettuce? AJ, the thing you're protected from is Asad would have to leave the house. And I don't think Asad as a ginger wouldn't really suit
If
him
I did
right
leave,
now.
I'm not going to a Wawa.
But your
I think
but your
there's
point
another thing
being the
happening.
same, I don't think about it. I mean, Sam, do you think about it? Or Asad, do either of you think about this?
What, security?
Yeah,
PIAA?
I mean, you did kind of just answer it when you're talking about your social bot, your like yourself out there and killing that. But like, when you when you input your personal health or whatever you do into ChatGPT, are you thinking about the security of that data?
I only do it on incognito.
Asa does think about it.
Asad does think about it. Yeah.
Where I come out as, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to know that I, got married or got divorced, or, this is my plans for the future, go
Just listen
for
to
it,
top
buddy.
line. You'll get all of it.
Ryan, how about you? Do you worry about this stuff?
I kind of operate under the assumption that everything that we put into the digital realm will one day be public in our lifetime or later, but the echoes of that will exist somewhere. And it is a concern. I think more about my kids than I think about my own personal stuff. Like, there's a lot you could find out about me if you hack my social media, and it would be incredibly boring.
When you die, would you want to leave your Gmail to your kids, or would you not want to leave your Gmail to your kids?
I think human beings are very textured, and your relationship with yourself has you exploring all these aspects of yourself, which you should do because you then learn about yourself and it shapes you. You shouldn't be afraid to be introspective. But does everyone on earth have to know that? Like, do your kids need to know you completely? I don't know. Like, I think you want to give the kids the pleasure of having you as a superhero in their mind, and you want them to feel like you were a human being. But I don't need to know everything. I don't need to know my parents' daughter's thoughts and like their deepest insecurity. I don't need to know all of that. Like, I don't know if that's that helpful. What does that facilitate?
Yeah. My grandfather passed away when I was very young. He was a World War II hero, and there was a Foot Locker in my grandmother's house with all these letters and it was amazing. It had pictures, and in many ways, you felt like I got to know somebody that I never really got to know through that. So some digital equivalent of that, Sam, yes, but all of my purchase history and all of the crap that's in, a Gmail account going back 20 years, no, I think I'd want that distilled in some fashion as a memento, not necessarily the entire account. How about you?
This is a belief of mine that is not shared, which is that we're not always solving for honesty. We're not always solving for transparency. Sometimes we're solving for making people feel good. And I also believe that secrets are a big part of who we are, and they're personal. They're private. It's okay to have secrets.
It has been fun to learn about cyber, which obviously, Ryan, you as our cyber expert are noticing that we haven't thought about all that much, but we're starting to think about it. And so we appreciate you talking to us about all of this. We're now done with some of our cyber conversation. We are going to the final segment of the day. Bulls versus bears. We're going to have questions and for each of you, and you're going to share whether you're bullish or bearish about that particular thing. And Sam, since you think a lot about Sam Altman and OpenAI and the future of that organization, I'm sure you're following this case between Elon and Sam and OpenAI. And so How are you bullish or bearish that Elon wins this case?
Define win.
This is where it gets technical. Like, will the court say that he, forget whether he wins the damages he has requested? Will they say that he is right and they're wrong and they essentially swindled him out of ownership and were very nefarious in the way that they did this? We recently found out, just to add to this, that Greg Brockman had a stake in Sam Altman's family office, a little side deal happening.
Everything I've read about Greg Brockman specifically is not good.
Crazy.
I am bullish on Elon winning the case, but it's like, it's a coin flip, and I could be wrong, but I stand by my prediction from the beginning of the year. OpenAI is a really, really important company. I just think sooner rather than later, we're gonna want less maniacal leadership. I think we're gonna. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe the shareholders are like, who cares? He's our diabolical, Bond villain. But I think
diabolical, is the word.
I think Elon will certainly claim victory, and I think that I think OpenAI will be significantly chastened.
They look horrible right now, like undeniably. Like I like OpenAI a lot, and I thought Sam Altman. I've always been favorable about them, but they look horrible today.
I think
And these
Peter Thiel made that funny point. He's like, whoever I talk to last, seems to make the most compelling point. But
I don't know if you'll
like,
feel the same way after reading these diary entries and knowing about these side deals and all this other stuff that's happening. It's a
I
little bit
just
sketch.
sometimes the shortest distance is a straight line. It's freaking called OpenAI. It's called OpenAI, and it's closed. It's It's exactly the opposite of its intention. It is precisely 180 degrees the opposite of its stated purpose for existence. Whether or not Elon wins, it's messed up. He's right.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Yeah, he's got a point here. We're going to stick with OpenAI, actually, Ryan. And the question is, are you bullish or bearish that 30% of OpenAI or Anthropic's, you can choose, revenue by the end of next year will be from cyber?
Bearish. I don't know that'll happen. Yeah, I think there are more. I mean, it depends on how they evolve their pricing models and what's subsidized and what's not. But I think more tokens will be burned on non-cyber related solutions and activities over the next 12 months.
I can tell you that STA is using a lot of tokens. Like, we're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars now, and it's like, just took me by surprise.
It's 8 figures. It's an 8-figure bill that you're getting over there.
But like we're a recruitment company. What are we doing spending 6 figures on tokens? Like, it makes you think a little bit. Like, really makes you think what our P&Ls look like 2 years from now.
What are you spending that much money on?
Yeah, well,
I'm going to look
actually,
into it, Sam.
we're spending that much money. How are you?
I think that conversation is going to happen at enterprises across the world, right? We're in a time when people are encouraged to experiment. There's budget available to do that. But at some point, the CFOs and those who have like fiscal responsibilities are going to step in and say, what are we spending this on? Right.
Yeah, somebody's going to give me a call. AJ, how much are you spending on AI?
Was that my bullish or bearish question?
No, that's just like I'm curious now.
We just upped it to $12,000 a month.
So not
for the
that
entire
much.
organization for Claude.
Okay.
Our CTO did a lot of work and brought down our cloud costs by 50%. So using Claude.
Maybe I should ask Claude how to spend less on Claude. Question for you. Last question of the day before we wrap this party up. AJ, ServiceNow had a big event the other day, and they announced that they see a very clean path to doubling their revenue by 2030 to $32 billion. ServiceNow, system of record, works with almost all of the enterprises, has the highest NRR out of all the publicly traded enterprise software companies on earth. Are you bullish or bearish that they will double their revenue by 2030?
Hold on, I'm looking up if Wawa uses ServiceNow right now. Look, this is I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer this question, but I'm gonna go like
Speculate wildly then.
we're really good at speculating wildly, Ryan, and we're always right 100% of the time. So I'm gonna go bullish, and it's because of what I said earlier, is that I think we railed against companies, and ServiceNow was the first company in the SaaS era that like had a meme tweet that went viral on ServiceNow just being destroyed by a markdown file. And I just strongly believe in the power of distribution. And ServiceNow is on the scale of Salesforce and their distribution and power distribution, and they do it at a global, worldwide level. I am bullish on them, similar to what we're seeing in Atlassian or other public companies being able to figure this out. So bullish.
I was bullish. I even said that that's a stock I would buy. I've become really bearish on these companies. I've got this new point of view.
I just
Really bearish.
appreciate AJ, you're bullish, but you're wrong.
It's like
Let me tell you why.
when I was dumb, I agreed with you, but then I thought about it.
In my less
That's
smart
exactly what I
days.
heard. When I was an ignorant fool,
I
you were
think
right.
there was a generation of software companies that had signs that they had really good customer relationships. NRR is an example of that. But their customers felt more like prisoners. They really did. Like they felt like they were locked in. They didn't have good alternatives. I- there was no way to get out of this thing. The alternative was more painful than where we are, but we don't love being where we are. It was kind of the feeling. And so these companies had really good revenue growth and they had great NRR. I have a feeling that where we're going, customers have less stickiness with platforms because I think that technology itself will enable you to move quickly, easily. It'll facilitate that. And I think the new software that we are all dealing with, it delights you in a way that the old software didn't. Like Salesforce, I used it a lot. It never delighted me. I was using Replit this weekend and it was a delightful experience. And I think there's just a very big shift in like how these companies are and what they make their customers feel. And so I think if a delightful alternative pops up for ServiceNow that makes moving from ServiceNow not the most arduous task on earth, that it made people think a bit. What do you think about that, agent?
I think they're two very, very different use cases. And the delight, I'm not sure a database is ever set up to delight anyone. And that's okay. It's a system of record. It does what the thing it needs to do. It's the utility. I'm not sure I want a Replit version of my CRM.
Delightful system of record.
Well,
Okay. Well, on that note, Sam, you want to read us out?
It's been another episode of Top Line. I've enjoyed it personally.
see, I'm ready to go to bed over there.
I've got a bunch more calls, but I do want to say thank you for listening, Ryan. Thanks for being our guest again. Sorry that I didn't know that. And I feel ashamed and embarrassed, but dear listener, give us 5 stars on any place where they're asking you to rate Top Line. Smash the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. If you watch this on YouTube, can you give us a thumbs up? Can you give us a comment? Can you give us a little comment? This was
Only
great.
nice ones, please.
Yeah, give us
We're
a nice
sensitive.
comment. And we're going to talk to you next week. Thanks, everybody.